in the village was wild. Like, there was a stabbing outside the theater. Yeah.
Whoa, wait. We're laughing at a stabbing. I just want to be clear that we just laughed at a stabbing.
I know.
We're sorry for anybody that may have been involved with that stabbing.
Yeah.
But wow, that is crazy.
This is kind of an iconic view for most people in Cornwall.
Look at it.
You think you're going to walk into like the village and they're going to be like, this is a small town. We don't need behavior. That's just crazy. Street party in the square, no thank you. But honestly, since 2001, when Nick dropped the first ball, there's been nothing but support from the village government. All right, and I was like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
They say no. Right, they say no. Right.
Or we get approved.
Right, well, fair, yeah.
Because that is like, well.
Sounds like a drunken night. They were hanging out in the lounge.
There was a lot
of shots, and let's get up on the roof and we'll throw a big ball. Okay,
exactly.
So how did your dad acquire the building? What was that? What kind of
motivated?
We
have some things that happened before that.
You have to get. She's
getting
there. She's getting there.
Swept under the rug. It wasn't really a stabbing.
Right.
So it's just like, okay. Yeah. But there was a riot that actually chased.
And we've moved on to riots now. The Cornwall riots.
There was a riot in the theater.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I think we're ready. 7:02. 07:02. 07:02. Ready to go.
Good morning, Cornwall.
This is Good Morning Cornwall. That's not a good tagline, though. No. Good morning, Cornwall. Cornwall Conversations. That man is bringing a garbage can up on that ladder. I mean, that is impressive. I brought a coffee up on the ladder. That guy is bringing a garbage can up on the ladder. That is.
We brought up all the wood. Everything is.
You helped out?
Yeah, with my dad.
Yeah, I think for the sake of the audience, I think everybody needs to understand like what it took to get up here this morning. I mean, there was not a cherry picker. No. We had to climb up the ladder. I held my coffee. Scott brought a clipboard. And what else did you bring? Oh, your coffee too. He didn't put it in his pocket though, so yeah.
Well, you ready to get started?
Yeah, I guess so, man. He's getting right to it. He's getting right to it. He's not messing around.
Here we are. Welcome to Cornwall Conversations. We're atop, if people don't know, we're atop 2 Idlewild Avenue, or otherwise known as the Storm King Theater. And I am Scott Teresi and
Domenic Baiocco.
And we are with Elizabeth Yannone.
Yannone. You knew he was going to.
You said it. You called it.
You knew you were going to mess it up.
Of course.
This is from an Italian guy that shouldn't mess it up.
And he did.
Yeah. When you said we were the top, by the way, I thought you were going to say we are the top podcast in all of Cornwall. That's what I thought you were going to say, but you were saying we're on top of 2 Idlewild Avenue, right? Top. All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
All right.
Elizabeth, it's all on you.
Yeah, back to Elizabeth. We got a microphone.
Okay. Yeah.
Introduce yourself, Elizabeth.
All right. Hi, I am Elizabeth Yannone, Brucey, depending on how you know me. And I am here today to talk about the Storm King Theater project and the history and anything else you guys pretty much want to know about what's going on with that. I've been a Cornwall resident since 1989 when we moved here from not too far, the town of Newburgh. I lived in this apartment as my first apartment, the one we're sitting above right now in this building. My room overlooked Village Square, which was pretty awesome to have as a first place. Then I moved into the city for a couple years, and then I moved back to get married and ultimately raise a family. I have
what better place to do it?
It took me a while to get there, but yes.
Sure.
I had other visions, but I'm here and I'm happy, and I do now agree that no better place to have done this. What else is there?
So this is kind of an iconic view for most people in Cornwall.
Look at it.
And that's
the view
of the ball drop.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the ball drop? Because it is kind of an iconic Cornwall-on-Hudson thing.
It is. So it's not a story that starts with me.
Okay.
But it is a story that starts with the late Nick Correa, who ran the restaurant Nicky's, right where Storm King Lounge and Fair is. I'm pointing because
Right, it's behind you.
It's behind me,
Again,
yeah.
for audience, and we don't have moving cameras, but
Exactly,
we are
yeah.
on top of Storm King Lounge, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nick Correa ran that restaurant for about 6 or 7 years or so, and had an idea one night with a bunch of his friends that he has this vision to drop the ball and have this big New Year's Eve celebration.
Sounds like a drunken night. They were hanging out in the
They had-
lounge.
yeah, there was a lot
Couple
of
of shots, and let's get up on the roof and we'll throw a big ball. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. And so him and his friends thought it was a great idea, gathered. Rory Sears from Scenic Technologies was friends with Nick, got involved. He created the ball, got the numbers, and Nick went to the village square. The village government to get approval to do this. They're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And the village is nice like that. People with crazy ideas, you think you're going to walk into like the village and they're going to be like, this is a small town. We don't need behavior. That's just crazy. Street party in the square, no thank you. But honestly, since 2001, when Nick dropped the first ball, there's been nothing but support from the village government. And then he did it up until about 2009 when he closed. And then I stepped in. I took over that year.
Oh, wow.
And then I left to move to the city. And then my dad got involved. My brother's been involved and changed hands a couple times. Mike Trainer stepped in. I don't know exactly what year. I think maybe around 2011 or so. He made sure that it was continuing. And then he formed Cornwall-on-Hudson Special Events with Domenic, who has been basically overseeing the ball drop operation since. So they teamed up because Mike was spearheading the ball drop and Domenic was running movies down at the riverfront.
Yep.
And they're like, we need to just have a committee and formalize this work that we're doing and try to get more community involvement and fundraise and so on and so forth. So they formed Cornwall-on-Hudson Special Events in 2016. So since 2016, Cornwall-on-Hudson Special Events has been running the ball drop. And they will continue to do so forever, but we'll always make sure.
I thought it went longer than 2001, like as in it started much earlier.
No.
We moved here in 2002, so again, I just thought it was, it's just always been happening. So, needless to say, I've dropped off all three of my kids, kindergarten through high school, and I've dropped them off probably 68,000 times.
Oh my gosh.
At the, there was always like, when they were younger, of course, like that was the thing, right? They just came down to the...
The interesting thing, when we moved here in 2017, right? So I'm the
we won't hold that against you, Scott. You've mentioned that before, but okay.
But one of the main things was when we were moving here on January 19th, 2017, we had closed on our house in October 2016. And I remember I stumbled upon living in Cornwall. And I remember we were in Seattle at the time for New Year's Eve. And we actually watched the ball drop live from Seattle. And Cornwall.
That's wild.
We knew we were moving here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so that was one of the interesting things. That's how I was introduced to the ball drop, was on Facebook Live.
That's amazing.
So now tell us a little bit more about this building. And so I know your father actually saved this iconic location. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Storm King Theater and kind of how your dad kind of saved this place.
Yeah. So whenever you look at historical pictures of Village Square, you mostly will see the picture of the bandstand sitting right smack in the middle, and you'll see this beautiful brick building that used to occupy this corner, which was Matheson Hall. The Matheson family ran this for, I don't know, maybe 50 years or so before they decided to demolish the building and build a theater and the future Cornwall Library, which is why we have the library, pretty much because of them. So they, in 1930, decided to demolish Matheson Hall to build this. So that's when construction started in 1935. It was completed in 1936.
That's some history right
Actually,
there. I didn't do good in social studies, by the way. I mean, that is some history right there. We're back to 1936.
Except subtract a year.
Okay.
It actually was a year earlier because I keep getting my years messed up because this will be reopening in 2026. The original was 1935.
Okay.
Sorry, it's early. So
it
opened in 1935.
If you were born in 1935, you'd be 90.
I'd be 90.
See, I did that math. Isn't that
that's pretty good.
Yes.
Impressed, right? If it's
Yeah.
not
Not social studies. Pretty good at math, but
well, ish. Yes, ish.
So July 3rd, 1935 to be exact.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so it opened up as a theater,
As a theater.
as a movie theater.
Very classic.
Okay.
It was Art Deco, very uniquely designed, a single floor auditorium, sat 600, 580 roughly.
That's really cool,
600.
actually.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
The entire building is built out of concrete and steel. So all steel frame, all concrete. The only wood that was used in construction was for the stage. And it was an old school Art Deco cinema that had a little stage with the curtains that opened and closed for the screen. It wasn't necessarily built to be a performance type of theater, but performances did come later in history. So the Matheson family had different management in the 30s, ultimately changed hands in the 40s. In the 50s was purchased by the McGorman family, so Mr. McGorman and the McGorman family, who are still around Cornwall. It's a known name in the community. So people have a lot of memories of Mr. McGorman. He also owned the pub that was operating in the perimeter as well, so he was a businessman. And then he changed hands in the 60s, he sold it, and it was owned by a woman named Ella Marion Katz, who is the mother of a very famous painter, Alex Katz. And she ran it in the 60s, and the village was wild. Like, there was a stabbing outside the theater. Yeah.
Whoa, wait. We're laughing at a stabbing. I just want to be clear that we just laughed at a stabbing.
I know.
We're sorry for ananybody that may have been involved with that stabbing.
Yeah.
But wow, that is crazy.
It's just to illustrate the type of times that we were living in.
Yeah.
And Cornwall is classic Cornwall. When I go through a lot of the news archives and learn about the history of this town and community that we live in, which is honestly very interesting. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? So I grew up in Cornwall, and I have a familiarity with how Cornwall likes to run, and we like to keep things clean. So whenever incidents happen, kind of sweep them under the rug, like, oh, we don't really talk about that, we don't highlight that, we don't whatever, and we move on, we just move on.
Yeah.
So in that story about this stabbing, it's quite interesting.
We're not laughing this time.
It was a couple of issues later, swept under the rug. Oh, it wasn't really a stabbing.
Right.
So it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But there was a riot that actually chased.
Oh, and we've moved on to riots now. The Cornwall riots.
There was a
Wow.
riot in the theater because during this time kids were very rowdy. I'm not exaggerating.
This was 60s, 70s.
This was in the 60s.
Okay.
A riot,
Which, to be fair, is really not that long ago, which is crazy.
Yeah. Happened during a movie because the film strip broke, and at that point it was just everything was just not in the best of shape.
Yeah, sure.
And Mrs. Katz, who was running the theater, was trying to get it fixed and calm everyone down, and they just wanted their money back, started freaking out, lighting firecrackers, pulling the seat chairs, throwing everything they could possibly throw.
It's usually what I bring to a movie as well.
Yeah.
I like a firecracker, an M80 or two.
And your milk box.
And one of those like little poppers to just, okay. Yeah, standard fare, along with the raisinets. It's got to have raisinets too. Okay.
Yeah, true. Ultimately spills out into Village Square. All the kids spill out into Village Square. Just, I can't imagine at the time, just rowdy, angry teenagers, whatever. And this poor woman, she's in her 60s. I've had it. And Cornwall Local covered it very, very lightly. Like I said, Cornwall like to, kind of keep things, because things like this don't happen in our community. Oh, those weren't Cornwall kids. Oh, it was exaggerated. you read the Newburgh Evening News, who, refers back to the incident in a 1980s article, funny enough. And turns out that Mrs. Katz, who was Jewish, the kids were chanting obscenities at her, her background, and she just at that point, like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done. Packed up. Her last ad for a movie here was for Dear John in December 1967, I think. Again, it's early morning. My exact timeline and my notes are down here.
Which one of us was born in 67?
Not me.
Oh, you were not. All right, you said that so emphatically. Well, like, not me. All right. It's only 3 years later for me, so, I mean, aren't we close in age? I'm older.
71 here.
Okay, 70. Okay, all right. Go ahead. Okay, sorry. 67.
And then it was
We weren't born.
a couple months later, the Talbot family that lived in Tuxedo Park stepped in and said, we want this to be a dinner theater. And they completely transformed what we knew as the theater as being strictly cinema for, 3 decades or so, into the first performing arts kind of experience. It was pretty short-lived, but it was super interesting because they had to do some renovations in the interior to have the tables sitting with the theater chairs, but they decided to completely refurbish the exterior as well. So there's some images for a short period where the theater had this Tudor-style look on the exterior, and it's kind of funky. To me, it looks like, when I look at these old black and white pictures, it's like tiki house, like slash Tudor.
1970s.
Yeah.
Wait, the 60s were still black and white? I thought we had color by then. No? It was still black and photographs, I
Those
guess.
photographs in the news, unfortunately.
Yeah,
are still
oh, gotcha.
black
Yeah,
and
right.
white.
Yeah,
So I haven't come across any. If anyone has any, just email me. But yeah. So we have these really wild, and I think about it all the time. Like when I look at the theater from the corner, I'm like, did it really look like driving down? It looked like that, and it was hilariously bad. Like it was so bad. But it stayed like that until about the mid-'80s when they took off the facade, and then there was brick, because there's brick underneath the stucco. So there was before my dad acquired it, then it was just like brick out in the front.
So how did your dad acquire the building? What was that? What kind of motivated
We have some
that?
things that happened before that.
You have to go. She's
getting
there. She's getting there.
It didn't just
He's
end.
the impatient one today. I'm locked in. I'm still trying to think of what this looked like in 1935. Seriously, like, can you imagine like that? That's really cool, actually.
It is really
to come
cool.
and see
And the opening night gala was something that I just read about, and I'm like, wow, because it was so glamorous. The way that they talk about how everyone was dressed up, and
like 3-piece suits, like
and
derbies, and were there cars back then in 35?
Yeah.
Were there people like? Okay, I don't know. I told you I wasn't that good at social studies. I don't know. Well, they're cars, I guess so, right?
And in classic Hollywood style, they were bringing flowers, and there was flowers all over, and there was bunting. Like the whole, it was a huge celebration. Probably the biggest celebration that was outside of what we do on New Year's Eve that ever happened in Village Square.
Yeah.
So my hope is for our opening night ceremony, we are going to do a nice opening night gala, keep it very fancy. And have a really good time.
Right. Gatsby theme. Wait,
no,
is that too early?
No.
Okay, like I said, never mind.
I'll
jump right off the roof. I'll just, terrible idea, Dom. See you later.
No, like Gatsby. I mean, it makes sense. It's the 30s, and we're in Art Deco.
Okay, good. I was in the right time frame.
You're in the right
All
time
right, good.
frame. I just, it's cliche.
Yeah, I get it.
We'll keep it a little bit more fun and creative, and I hope to, in the spirit of the Met Gala, do things that are really, really fun from a fundraising perspective, and have these galas that are going to really be out there.
Sure.
And that's kind of my style, in the sense of, we're going to do it right, we're going to do it big, and no one's going to tell me we can't make it happen, kind of thing. So that's my vision for future galas.
Yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank one of our platinum sponsors, Rocky Bagels. Without them, we wouldn't be able to bring you this type of content here at the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce. Fantastic bagels delivered to your home. At our house, we order Rocky Bagels every chance we get. We usually have them delivered first thing Saturday morning, and it's something that the whole family looks forward to. They got their favorite. My daughter is a huge fan of the egg bagel. Myself, I have a preference towards pumpernickel, and my wife, she's just kind of a plain bagel kind of lady. Once again, thank you, Rocky Bagel, for your support as a platinum sponsor. And let's get back to the podcast with Elizabeth from the Storm King Theater.
So
Fancy gala.
I was going to go back to the...
No, you're careful. Careful. Careful, you're going to ask again.
We were in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To how Dad acquired the building.
Well, 70s. No, 70s. We were in the 70s.
Okay.
Right. Black and white photos.
What's super interesting about the 70s is the dinner theater concept. There was a couple different owners that took over. It just didn't last. It wasn't sustainable. So it folded in 1972 or 1973-ish, and then someone came in, turned back into a cinema for a very short period, even showing X-rated movies, which is also super fascinating.
I am not going to make one single comment about that. Not a thing. Right. Nope. I am going to say, oh.
Yeah, it was highlighted.
And interview over. We'll see you later. Good night, everybody. Good night, Cornwall. Oh, no. Okay, here we go.
I mean, it's just funny. Again, going back to the things that we talk about in Cornwall, things that we don't talk about, right? And to think that this building was doing that right out in the open like this.
It actually is pretty wild.
Next to the school. I mean, it's kind of wild.
Elizabeth's adding all kinds of things in there. Definitely not where my mind went, but okay. All right.
Well, you can even have a alcohol beverage from one of the buildings next to the school, so it's like, you know, it's weird. So it was called King Cinema, didn't last long, wasn't profitable, shut its doors, and then in comes the visionary to have an auction gallery house. It's not Joanne Grant yet. Some people might immediately think Joanne Grant. It was actually
That's what I thought.
It was Schuster.
Okay.
Robert Schuster. He did a complete conversion of the theater and positioned it so that it could have like this rotating stage and these really cool spotlights, and made it a beautiful gallery space. I do not know what caused him to stop his operation in the theater, but he did, and then put the building up for sale in the mid-70s, and then Joanne Grant stepped in with Hudson Galleries.
Yeah.
And she was the owner of the building and ran Hudson Galleries at least until the earlier mid-90s out of this. At some point, I don't know exactly because I have to go and have another follow-up meeting with her to get the history and timeline pretty cleared up, but she decided to vacate the building too and move her galleries into the Windsor Vales Gate area where she still operates. So Hudson Galleries never actually.
By the airport over there.
Actually, it's in Vales Gate, by the little like shopping plaza. There used to be a bagel shop in there that I used to go to all the time.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, but I feel like she was out a little bit further, more by the airport. But
she might have been at some point.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Sure.
I think that those are newer buildings.
Yeah.
So she.
But I know what you're talking about with the Armed Forces building.
Yeah, that's where she is now.
Train tracks,
But super interesting. She had massive auctions in here. Very successful. I think that really launched her career and gave her a place in the scene. Although she was a big collector before that, and when her and her husband acquired the building, she just saw, this is a place for me to build on my collecting. She went to nursing school, just went in an entirely different direction in life, and I think that's what happens to a lot of us. You follow your passions, and I'm really happy for her that she was able to pursue that passion of hers. But what happened was there was some kind of interesting arrangement she had when she left this building with somebody named Tony Durant, who was operating Durant's Pub out of this place. I don't know if he did a lease agreement where
we've definitely entered the interesting portion of this history of this building.
Yeah.
So far, we've gotten X-rated movies and a special. Well, riots were back, but now we're into a special arrangement with the buildings. Okay, here we go.
Well, in terms of deeds and ownership. So Joanne Grant never actually sold the building. She was the deed holder or the mortgage holder of the building. But so I don't know if Tony was doing like some kind of lease purchase. I don't really know the specifics of that agreement, but she was still technically the owner, but so was Tony. And he actually was the first one to carve out the building and reduce the size of the theater and make a portion, which was pretty much the stage area, the kitchen, which now serves that restaurant.
Okay.
So it's not part of the theater anymore. It's officially part of the restaurant because it's the big kitchen area.
Right.
And then he stripped out the theater, so there's no original antique cool things in the theater, with the exception of a couple of theater lights that are actually they are cool. That's pretty much all we have left from the original like detail. Then he just didn't have the money, I think, to do what he needed to do to get this building back into shape. At that point, there was news articles in the 80s and going into the 90s where the building was deteriorating so bad that the village got involved and had to get everything, encourage the owners to get everything back into operating safe kind of standards. But by the time Tony took over, he didn't make the investment, especially on the exterior, where there was scaffolding down at the street at some point because the concrete was falling off onto the street, so it was dangerous. So the village started the proceedings for condemning it. It was falling into foreclosure under Tony, and that was around 1997. And then my dad stepped in and like, you know what? I want this building. I'm going to acquire it, and we're going to make something of it. And when he acquired it, it wasn't clear exactly what his vision was ultimately for the building. He wasn't even sure what was possible from a restoration standpoint. And there's a local article that highlights the restoration, and Gene Dugnan at the time was someone that was working with my dad, and he really spearheaded the entire restoration and advocated to make sure that we are saving this building in all possible ways. And then my dad was like, great, we'll have a theater at some point too.
What was it about the building that attracted your dad? Do you know what attracted him to this building, and what was it that...
I think he was just architecturally attracted to it because it's unique. And he does he has a little bit of a preservationist in him, a little spirit, to want to save things that he just thinks are super cool. And another example of him stepping in and doing that was with the train station where Hudson Taco is now in Newburgh. So he acquired that building, did the full restoration for it, and that was his first time actually building out a theater, because the first tenant that he had for that building was Railroad Playhouse, and they wanted a black box type of theater, and so he built that out for them in that space before Hudson Taco stepped in, and they ultimately own it now.
So that's a nice transition into your vision and your dad's vision for the old Storm King Theater, and how do you see...
Wait, hold on. Is that the original sign?
Yes, the original sign.
It's the original sign, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. The 1930s, that was what was lighting up.
I mean, you could feel it. Like you could feel, it's pretty cool.
And that was one of his first, got to restore that sign type of projects. And I'm not sure how long it sat dark, but it sat dark for a pretty long time, where the article in the local highlighted the opening, and people were all coming out and gathering to see it because they were so excited to have it lit up again.
Yeah.
Because it is special.
I
love it.
Sure.
We were talking earlier about the hum of the neon and just how iconic that
it is.
For sure.
Not just the lights themselves, but even the sound, right?
Yeah, it is.
So,
very cinematic too, where for me, like, you watch movies and it's like an old movie and it's like raining and it's like, we're in a city somewhere and there's this cool neon sign and you hear the sound of the rain, you hear the buzz of the neon, and you're like, oh yeah, and then a crime happens, like a stabbing.
Oh, here you go, riots. Here come the riots.
Exactly. So back to the question.
So the question was, talking about your vision now moving forward, what you and your dad see as the path forward for the theater and what that looks like.
So my dad's vision was always to get this to be a theater again. Like, I want to make that very clear, like that's what he wanted. The reason why it didn't happen sooner was because there were a lot of obstacles, mostly bureaucratic obstacles with zoning and the village board and people's support of people not, parking being the primary
Yeah,
primary
parking
problem.
stuff.
And the parking lot that is now the parking lot over there behind the bandstand was actually owned by Joanne Grant and as part of the theater. So when they built the bandstand, they were trying so hard to acquire, the village was trying so hard to acquire that lot from Joanne so they could have more municipal parking. She ends up selling it to the village. There was supposed to be this not unspoken, I should say, there was this unrecorded agreement with the village and Joanne that, hey, parking allocations will always count towards whatever happens in this theater with this lot. But that was never put in a deed. It was never put into any kind of formal writing. So there was a lot of issues. And there was a famous dispute that my dad was having with his former neighbor, the late Tony Mazzeri, as well, because he got rid of parking spaces to have that little outdoor patio. It was a mess. I mean, if you go back into village history and want to start reading about disputes, that dispute was classic. I mean, it was not, and my dad was upset because he was trying so hard to make this something, and it was just like, nope, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't. And for as supportive as the village is sometimes for supporting crazy ideas like dropping balls from rooftops and having street parties, there's also very strict rules that you have to follow.
For sure,
and
right.
Zoning and they're very careful around planning. So he had a couple of different tenants, local, that wanted to go in. So he had 2 applications historically over the planning board to get the space back. None of them materialized, but over the course of trying to get those done, he got a lot of obstacles cleared, like on parking and other zoning and other things. So he was like, you know what, I think we're in a place now where we can move forward and have a theater in this space. So for the New York Forward plan, there was a meeting. They had the public meetings, and in the first meetings, Rick, and I don't know Rick's last name, but I just know him as Rick, sat up and said, you know what, I want to see the Storm King Theater restored back into like an art house, and he talked about his vision for this. And a couple people came up to me as well and was like, you should really just go for the New York Forward. You should really go for the New York Forward. And I was like, okay. So I go to my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm getting a lot of encouragement that we should try to pursue this. I think, there's no harm. Let's go for it. And my dad is so cynical. He's like, no, it's not going to happen. Stuff like that doesn't happen for me. Like, we've tried so many times. I was like, but yeah, you don't have to do anything except for answer my questions when I need information from you. But like, I'll do it. I'll do the whole application.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right. And I was like, yeah, what's the worst that's going to happen?
They say no. Right,
yeah.
They say no, right.
Or we get approved.
Right, well, fair, yeah.
Because then he's like, well. So we go forward with that process, and when my dad and I were talking about how we would utilize the space, it was more of like, look, if we're getting public funds, we want to make sure that we're giving the space back to the public. But in order to do that, we have to look at the theater as an ecosystem, an economic ecosystem. And what I mean by that is that theater itself is subdivided right now. We're sitting on the apartment I explained earlier that I occupied as my first outside of home experience. We have a restaurant down here. We have Verizon up here. A lot of people don't know that. Nice, very good cell phone signal. It's Verizon antenna. Yeah. So that is, we have 3 paying tenants. Mortgage is paid on the building, so there's no like real kind of expenses. We just have income coming in right now, and that means that we can give theater space with very little overhang back to the community with very little cost, especially if we're using state funds to get a majority of the renovations done. But we're splitting it up into 2 theaters. We have an upper theater and a lower theater. The upper theater is a space that's carved out so that the restaurant will own that, and it'll fall under their operation. So they're going to do this big catering room that's going to be a little bit loungy, so they're moving the piano, or they're planning to move the piano that's in the restaurant there now, and just make it this great like entertainment space that's diverse. And owned by the restaurant. And then we have the theater space, which will be owned by nonprofit Storm King Theater, which right now sits under the Community Foundation, and will sit until I form my nonprofit board. So if anyone's interested in that, it's a little plug. Please reach out to me.
So your
Vision Give Back.
Yeah. So you were talking about you had mentioned the community and giving back to the community. Can you talk a little bit about that vision of the community theater, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So community theater, in the sense of community theater, you normally think of like, oh, someone's going to come in and you're going to have these little small town productions that the community is mostly acting in and producing. What I really mean is that we're not looking at just theater in that sense, like a community theater. We're looking at an art house. And what I mean by an art house is that it's a space that is going to be focused on community programming around the arts. So we might have movies, we might have live performances. We can basically do anything we want. We can have art shows. I want to bring immersive art into the space. We don't have any immersive art experiences around here. So really have a goal to bring that in and create partnerships with artists and have those free for the community. Very much like how we operate Cornwall-on-Hudson special events today. So Cornwall-on-Hudson special events, I'm part of that committee. That's been a committee since 2016, and I brought them up earlier because they are the ones that continue the ball job. They, host all the movies down at the this year mostly at Donahue Farm and Town Hall, but down at the river is where they've been historically.
So we could see having some of those Cornwall special events movies, like in the wintertime, they might be here.
Exactly.
Because you can't do those obviously down the river.
Exactly. So as much free programming as possible. But we need to support that financially because it does cost a lot of money to drop the ball. Right. It does cost a lot of money to host free movies. Now, we're not doing first runs, but it is about $500 a license for each movie that we show out to the public. So we need to be able to raise that money. So the theater also will be available for private use. And by private use, it means that you can come to me and say, hey, I want to rent out the theater, or I want to use it for X, Y, and Z. Or, you know what, I want to host my own concert in the theater and, charge like whatever.
You're drumming. You're drums.
Yeah.
You could get out there.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah, for sure.
And the fees will be pretty simple. Either it's a fee that you're a nonprofit and you are hosting a free event for the community, free for everyone. And actually, even if you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is, and you still want to host a free event for the community, and there's no cost and there's just no revenue that you're going to gain from it, it's just a community type of initiative, free. No questions asked, come in, use our space.
Love that.
But if you're a nonprofit, and let's say you want to host a fundraiser in there, and you want to host a fundraiser gala, whatever it might be, that's totally fine. You can do that. And we can work on a couple of different fees. One, you can give me a percentage of what you're raising, or we can do a flat fee type of arrangement. Yeah. And then there's just be all the other private uses. And what happens is there's 3 buckets that I'm using to put the money. One is long-term capital improvement. So I want to continue to reinvest and make sure the theater is vibrant and has great technology and it's a beautiful space. So I want to always make sure that we're reinvesting. But theaters are expensive.
Should we wait for that?
Is there a truck?
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Right? Yeah, right. I don't know how much that picks up over like our voices.
Yeah. Theater equipment is very expensive, so if something breaks and has to get replaced, that's all going out of the capital improvement fund. So that'll be an invested fund that we keep building over time. Yeah. Second fund is simple for operation. So even though there are no major expenses like having to pay a mortgage, I still have to pay for insurance, I still have to pay for web presence, and all of the little things that I'm going to need at a basic level to sustain proper operations of the theater. So that's the second bucket. And the third bucket is the community bucket. And I want to make sure that we always have a percentage of everything that we take in that goes into the community fund, which should reduce our fundraising burden to have the really fun community types of events.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, so I can support others that want to come in and say, I really want to host this community event. I don't have the money. Like, we love the idea. We want to support you in doing this, and try to figure out how we can also support these people that just want to do great, really fun things.
We'll have a chamber mixer.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have our chamber mixer here.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
And so that's a nice lead in into what kind of events.
You like that, right? You like that.
What kind of events do you see actually having here, and would be
anything.
Yeah.
Anything. So we are looking at ways to have seating that can be completely removed, so we can have a completely empty.
So like you could have a banquet or a ball.
We could.
Or something like
yes.
that.
What do you think the capacity will be? We talked about 500 or 600 back in the day.
Yeah.
But,
so remember, it's 2 theaters now.
right. One on top.
One on lower. So my theater, the community theater, the Storm King Theater, is the public space.
Sure.
It has seating. Seating is different than standing. I don't know what the standing capacity is, but the seating capacity will be 100.
Okay.
So
it's a nice number.
It's a nice number.
Right.
Very nice.
But
So-
usually when you clear out the seats, you could have more, like whatever, if you put some high tops in there or something like that, right?
And then also,
Because our Cornwall chamber mixers, I think the last one we had like 2,500 people showed up. It was a lot. So we might be able to squeeze them
we
in.
could just bring
We
them out
might
to
be
the
able
village
to squeeze
square
them
and
in.
just close the square and, have the party out like it's New Year's Eve all over again.
Right.
Perfect.
So what do you envision the impact to the community? So when the theater comes to fruition, how do you see that impacting the community?
So the theater has had an interesting impact on the community historically, and not in my lifetime. I've never got to experience it, but when I go through the memories that I've been saving of all of the theater goers of the past, you can see the importance that it was to the community. It was a place where a lot of times, like I read it and it's like a coming of age type of thing. It was like, oh, the kissing games in the theater, or like, oh, I met my husband in the theater, or oh, it's like just all these crazy things. Like, no, it's true.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and say, oh, imagine the kids are going to go in and have like their first kiss in the theater again and like romanticize that we live in like times that we don't live in. But I do imagine it's going to be a place that is going to create memorable experiences for the community, that people are just proud to have a place like this where they can do these types of things and have these types of experiences. And because it's not going to be dedicated to one specific art medium, it's going to be dedicated to many different types of mediums, everything from parties to concerts to, like I said, just visual arts, like immersive art experiences. It's going to be something that just is a place that people can experience things sometimes for the first time, or just have an out-of-world type of experience, which is kind of what movies are, right? They take you out of this world into whatever that narrative is trying to make you feel or see or experience. So inside will always be that, and what somebody else said, it's not my words, but I love it, that wonderland. Home to our greatest wonderland. And that's what I really am clutching, our greatest wonderland.
Home to our greatest wonderlands.
And that's what the impact I want to have on the community, a positive one, one that inspires the future, and one where people just feel really proud of that they have this to experience. So
For sure. And there is a lack of it, right? There is a lack of that bigger space. I mean, I joke about 2,500 people, but it's definitely, even throughout Orange County, forget just Cornwall, to have a space where you could put 100 people comfortably, especially for something like this,
And also programming. I feel like, there are so many places that are dedicated to very specific types of programming, but to have a place where the programming is really endless, where we can do so many interesting things because we have this empty space where we can pretty much do whatever we want to do. I mean, it's going to have such a diverse schedule that's also going to keep it interesting. And there's not many places that have that. Like you have, performing arts centers that are stuck to performance art. You have movie theaters that are stuck to just movie theaters, but you have these art galleries that are amazing. Like all this stuff is amazing, but they're completely fragmented and they're spread out all over the place. We're going to have one house, the art house, where it's going to be able to be all these things. And what's awesome is that we have a partnership with Storm King Lounge. So the 2 rooms will have the ability to connect as well. So we'll have more space than just the theater for whatever you need. And of course, it's going to be a little bit different structure-wise in terms of how we have that arrangement, because we're bringing in the restaurant portion. But they're going to be responsible for doing all catering. We'll have our liquor licensing and everything like that through them. So.
You beat me to that question. I was going to ask about the liquor license. I was going to ask. I mean, it's nice to have that. Okay. Yeah.
So they'll operate it from that sense. And the theater itself will be operated completely by volunteers. So I will not be taking a paycheck. I'm not on a payroll. I'm not putting anyone on my payroll. Anytime we staff something, it'll be coming in as independent contractors. So it'll be part of, the cost of putting on an event in this space. Or we'll be using the restaurant from the catering standpoint, so everything falls under them too. So that helps keep things super.
So you talk about next steps and timelines. When would people expect to see, their first event here, or first movie here?
Next year, this time, hopefully.
Next year.
All things
2026.
go, yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking at 2026 spring. Likely late spring opening for the lower theater.
Yep.
The upper theater, the restaurant space theater, will be open before us. So I think they're looking to book parties for the Christmas season, the holiday season, probably starting fall.
Yeah.
So.
So the upper theater will be ready sooner, right?
Yeah.
I caught that right. Okay.
That's the goal. That is the goal. We are looking at groundbreaking within the next couple of weeks. So we're doing a big release with the state and with the community foundation and all the
That's
political
really cool.
leaders and hopefully the chamber. We are a chamber member now.
Yes.
In both ways.
Well,
Hudson
not
Special
hopefully
Events.
the chamber. The chamber will definitely be.
definitely be.
Yeah. Even if not represented by the chamber, me and Scott are going to be here for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a really fun groundbreaking ceremony. And the first thing that I think everyone's going to see is the exterior transformation. So we're really excited about that. I want to keep a lot of the things a surprise though for everyone, because it's I want it to be something where you see it transforming before your eyes, but when you get the full experience of it, you're going to be like mind blown.
If people want to follow along the progress, learn more about the theater, where can they go, or who can they talk to learn more about the progress and what's going on?
So we've been working on our web presence, so we do have our website, stormkingtheater.com.
Stormkingtheater.com.
Stormkingtheater.com. I look right into the camera. For these, I like to look right into the camera. Stormkingtheater.com.
Yeah.
I didn't mess it up. I delivered it perfectly.
What are they going to find when they go there, that website?
So what you'll find is all of the news archives. You will find the history. You'll find out highlights and a little bit about our plan, including the plans, the architectural drawings for the space. So a lot of things I've spoken about, I know are confusing, and even you yourself admit, you're like, oh, you spoke about this stuff. I saw that you even saw the plans, but like not really see the plans, and then you walked me through it, and then I saw the plans again, and then it all really started making sense. It's a lot to digest. It is. It really is. And I am a lot to digest, so I get it. It's okay. Yeah. So stormkingtheater.com.
Facebook, Instagram,
I'm on Facebook.
the TikTok.
Yeah. So Instagram, we have an Instagram.
Okay.
And we have, I don't have a TikTok, I have a special events TikTok. I didn't create one for the theater yet.
Okay.
Really not much to do on that side yet.
Right.
The Facebook, we have both a page and a group.
Okay.
There's different features with both.
Right.
So yeah, you can follow us everywhere you want to follow us.
Okay.
I have a mailing list too. I'm starting to collect as well. But yeah, we're there. And just so everyone knows that you can spell theater 2 ways. The old way of spelling it, or the way that it was. Yeah.
It's the theater.
Yes.
Or you could just do theater.
Yeah.
Right?
We had to.
Theater?
Yeah. We are.
T-E-R or T-R-E?
T-E-R.
Good with spelling. I won my 4th grade spelling bee in Linwood Avenue Elementary School, Long Island. Shout out Holbrook.
That's
Sorry,
amazing.
I'm lying about that, but
I
am a good speller.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Terrible. Terrible at history. Okay at math. Pretty good at spelling.
Yeah.
So wait, how do we spell it?
Theater.
T-E-R. Okay, got it.
Got it. All right.
The T-R-E is the more fancy one. That's the one we go. theater.
Yeah, the with the
That's-
R.
yeah.
It used to be
Sorry.
spelled that way. So like when I was doing my history and I originally was searching and nothing was coming up, I was like, why isn't it coming up?
This is the portion where Scott has enough of me. Now, you said you were a lot, but usually Scott gives me that look of, man, would you just... But I don't. I just keep on going. So yeah, just keep on going. Do we look like twins, by the way, with the matching sweaters, or not so much? Look. Hey, I put
I'm sorry,
Elizabeth
Scott's
on.
way more handsome.
Oh my God! Oh,
Shots fired. Here we go. Right up the
no,
road.
we can cut this now. We can done. It's over. Yeah.
Thank you, Oscar. I appreciate that. Man, Elizabeth going right for it. I love it.
Elizabeth,
I love
yes,
shots fired. I love shots fired.
I love it.
Yeah, it's perfect. I love it.
So with that,
Anything else? You want to add anything?
You want to
Did we
add
miss
anything?
anything?
Well, I hope you guys come back at
We
least.
will be coming back.
Because there's a lot to show you over time, and maybe before doors open, we can do like a little sneak peek.
Ooh, love that.
So to be clear, I mean, for me, stuff like this is just like, when we hear about this stuff and like put it out, this is like, I love stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like truly, we love it for the community, and I just love it in general, right? Whatever that is, transformations, things for the community. I can't say enough about it. So nice work, really, truly.
Well, it's a story right now, though.
Yeah.
You have to remember that.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a story. Right now, it's an idea, and it's execution once we hit ground, and then we'll see how well we execute in terms of bringing all of these visions and these ideas to life. And I want to be held accountable to that, so I do hope that I have something material to show you.
Okay.
At least, you know.
So we should just call you up and be like, Elizabeth, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
You want us to do that? I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, but what's exciting is, we've got these two great projects that really anchor. You have the hotel project in Cornwall, and now we've got this anchored project here in the village, which
Agreed.
is really super exciting, right?
Agreed.
So lots of great stuff going on. And
I'm
we're
looking
so
forward to
excited
see a movie here.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, like, and it would be cool to see like an old school movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna dress up in Gatsby. I know you said it's cliche, but I don't care. I'm just gonna, I got a hat, I got the whole thing. I'm coming in. I got a little pocket watch.
Yeah, so we're gonna stay tuned, right? Stay tuned.
You're gonna stay tuned.
Great things going on.
Great
here
things
at the
going
Storm
on,
King
and
Theater.
everyone's gonna start seeing the outside start to happen. Everyone can be curious about what the inside is gonna look like. I know we pitched it as a black box. It might be a black box. It might not. I don't know, but it's gonna be a theater.
That's cool.
So we're excited.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah.
By the way, did we cover what time it was in the morning? I mean, like, the dedication of the team in general, there should be a shout
Shout
out.
out to Oscar.
A shout out to Oscar. I mean, I don't know what time it is right now, but it's early.
It's early.
We climbed ladders at 6:30 this morning. So we are dedicated.
Well, you came at 6:30.
I did.
She was here at 6.
To be clear, I am a banker. This is like quintuple overtime for me. So yeah, I mean, I usually don't start till 10. So
Okay.
at
lucky
least.
you.
If you like this content, please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. It helps us to grow our audience and bring more content like this to you on a more regular basis. Thank you, and again, like and subscribe.